Hi, this is Ted Kelly with another Ted's Hospitality Minute. Hey, today we've got a great guest on. His name is Raul Moronta. He's with Remington Hotels. He's going to come on and talk a little bit about what's going on over at Remington, the state of the industry, maybe from his perspective with COVID and the rebound, and hopefully what the outlook is for the rest of 2021 and into 2022. Obviously, we're all hoping for positive things. Good morning, Raul. How are you?
Good morning. How are you doing, Ted? Great to be here. Thank you for the invite.
Hey, thank you so much for giving us a few minutes of your time and your expertise. We're looking forward to hearing about your outlook on the industry and how things are going to fare out, hopefully into 2021, 2022. Before we jump into that, tell me a little bit about you. How did you get into the hospitality industry? You know, what's keeping you here? Obviously, we've been going through a tough time. So talk a little bit about you and how you got into the hospitality world.
Good. Well, I was born and raised in the Dominican Republic. I graduated hotel business, married for 27 years to my wife, who's also in the hospitality industry. So we've only worked in hotels. Actually say that I've worked in only two industries. One was obviously a very successful hospitality. My only other part-time job was actually one time working at Blockbuster, and now we know how that ended up. So I think hotel is the only thing we have left to go with. But no, very excited to be here. So yeah, actually, I started, as I said, in from high school. I wanted to be in hotel business at the time. Dominican Republic was growing the transitioning into hospitality being the number one source of income for the country. And it was very exciting, so we said, well, I want to study these. And when I did that, finished, as I said, met my wife in the hotel industry, came and did my master's in Connecticut, and then ended up in Boston. I was from Boston for 20 years before I head down, and now I live in Dallas.
Wow, that is awesome. And of course, Dominican Republic is a great destination spot for vacation. So I'm sure that's a great spot to be in the hospitality world. So tell us a little bit about you and what you're doing now for Remington. What's your role over at Remington right now?
Very good. So I joined in December as a chief commercial officer. So we oversee sales, revenue, digital marketing. So all of the disciplines combined under one. So in the past, as you know, hotel business would have been probably fragmented where, sales would have been separate at some point. Again, in the beginning, digital wasn't its own department division. Revenue management could have been under sales or under operations, depending on how the hotel was set up. But I think things have evolved in a way that, we need to have a cohesive messaging in order to generate revenues. Again, I keep saying whether it is B2C, a customer really doesn't care whether they're talking to a sales manager or a front desk agent or whatever. They need a room, and in this case of group, they need somebody to help them obviously plan that business. On the B2B side, actually, again, a client just needs obviously some help. If you talk about, for example, an owner at the end of the day wants to make sure that we can realize improve their asset value. And it's irrelevant to them to some degree, whether that is done through group, transient, OTAs or not. They obviously, at the end of the day, want us to improve that. And what happens is, again, historically, you have had that there may have been, conflict between sales or revenue or digital or operations. And I think having every one of the disciplines under one leadership provide a more cohesive message and a coordinated effort in generating revenues.
Gotcha. Awesome. So tell me a little bit about how you guys are seeing 2021, or should I say the balance of 2021, and how the recovery is going over at Remington, and how did you guys kind of fare through that, I guess, based on your tenure there?
For what I call myself a data geek, it's been quite an interesting side. It's like kind of watching a meteorologist observe out a hurricane is coming. So it's been kind of an interesting take on the recovery. And I'll give you some examples. In the first quarter, we didn't quite know how the year was going to turn out. And again, that was probably at the beginning of the beginning of supposed recovery of the pandemic, vaccinations and things like that. We did not expect that by the end of March, things would recover a lot faster and very different than what we thought it would be. So leisure hotels started doing amazing numbers. We actually kept on breaking records in April, May, June, July. To give you an idea, we have about 7 hotels that in the month of July recorded historic RevPAR numbers. And some of that had to do with the fact that there's been a multitude of different factors why that has happened. One is it's all leisure driven. You have these pent up demand, right? But also it has to do with how the states opened up. So the states that opened up early, then they also benefited from that demand. So no surprise, Florida has had historic numbers in revenues, in average rate, in every single metric. Texas has done very well. Arizona has done very well. So the states that actually opened up and they happen to be more leisure driven also had a great benefit with regards to revenues, because people basically flock to it, right? So we had less demand, but that less demand went to a very small subset of areas. So to give an example, in 2020, out of the top 25 markets, the #1 market for growth was Virginia Beach.
Really?
I would never have expected Virginia Beach to be on the top. And then you had, for example, Virginia Beach was one, then Tampa was another one. And then if you take a look at, for example, out of the top right now cities with regards to occupancies and revenues and production performance have to do with Florida. There's, I think, I don't know, 5, 6 out of the top 10, 25 markets. And then you're going to have, Dallas has done very well. Again, Virginia Beach has done very well. Arizona has done very well because, again, people want to go on vacation to a place where they are not restricted by mandates or whatever the case it is, whether you are vaccinated or not. The other interesting thing has happened is that you talk about age groups, right? So senior citizens vaccinated first, but the older senior citizens are not traveling because they still feel that they are exposed. But if you take a look at, for example, the age gap of let's say late 50s and 60s, they high net worth individuals that also want to travel and they're also vaccinated. They started to travel quite a bit. You also had the younger generation, which again was either fresh out of college, may or may not have a job, may have had some disposable income. They're traveling quite a bit. So you're getting a significant amount of people who may or may not have traveled before, and you're getting basically weekends. Right now, I can tell you that in the month of July, we were already at full recovery for the United States on weekends. We recorded 82% occupancy in the month of July, if I'm not mistaken, countrywide.
Wow.
Now, and that is regardless of where you are located, urban, suburban, whatever the case it is. The weekdays is the part that has not recovered as much. And a lot of that has to do with the fact that weekdays are significantly being more prone into corporate group, corporate business transient, which are the ones that have lagged behind in terms of recovery.
The business traveler. Yep. So you are hitting on the same note that I am, that I don't see the full recovery coming until we kind of get that Sunday night through Thursday night traveler back, which is the business guy, right?
Yep.
And then I think we'll see kind of the progression pick up really nicely. I think right now, to your point, you see a lot of pent up demand, people driving to destinations that they can get to that's reasonable in terms of the hours it takes to get there, but they're really resort like opportunities for them to get away and kind of relax for a minute. the question I have, and maybe you can share your position on it as school starts to pick up, coming up on the fall. Now, what do you think is going to happen to that occupancy level as school kicks back in? Now, all of a sudden, the parents can't just get up and, kind of pull out, which I guess they could in some cases, but if they go virtual, right? But, how do you think that's going to impact the recovery trends that you guys are seeing, if it will at all?
So, interesting enough, the reason why, for example, the government is pushing very hard on getting schools open and not virtually is because we underestimate the amount of pressure that puts on a family if the kid is at home and mom can't go to work and can't travel. So one portion of getting people back to work is actually having kids back in school. And the reason for that is because, again, then you have a daycare issue, right? So a number of associates, think about, for example, some associates that even relied on working from home. Well, they can work from home and it's great, but if I have 3 kids at home that I also need to worry about whether their Zoom works or not, I am not as efficient. So again, there's a daycare issue when it comes to that. But with regards to occupancy and demand, I think there's a couple of things that happen. We are already probably close to peak when it comes down to weekend occupancy. So the weekend occupancy are probably going to be as good as they're going to be for the rest of the year, probably peaking about 80% portfolio-wide. Weekdays, we have seen a recovery of about 5 to 10%. So, weekdays, we're probably looking at, low 60% occupancies. Weekdays, where we would have been at 85, 90, let's say. So with regards to the fall, there's a couple of things that are going to happen. We had expected, obviously, that kind of after Labor Day, people have said, well, we're going to bring everybody back to work. The Delta variant had put kind of a damper into it. So people now are deciding, are we done through the year? Are we not done through the year? There is, however, I think some pent up demand for internal group meetings that need to take place. So if you have been at home for the longest time, and I'm still not ready to bring everybody back into the office, I still need to meet with my team because I haven't seen them for a year. And by the way, the vast majority of us, including obviously, particularly on the hotel business, we're all working on budget reviews now and budget meetings and setting up the numbers for next year. So while 2021, it is still a little iffy, everybody needs to make sure that they have a very successful 2022, because 21, it is what it is. So I do believe that there's going to be a lot of pent up demand of small internal company group meetings as opposed to your traditional association and things like that. The other thing I would tell you is that there is a lot of pent up demand on fall sports. So last year, vast majority of those fall sports and tournaments and things like that were canceled. Kids going back to school, it is going to bring back all those tournaments. And I wouldn't be surprised if, again, we still have a lot of demand for weekends in the fall, because you're going to have your baseballs and your soccers and, football and all that stuff, that we're in a better place now that I would suspect that they're not going to be canceled as they were in years prior.
Yeah, I think that's a fair assessment, especially in light of the fact that, we got the Delta variant, but we also have a vaccine that's kind of putting some protection in place from folks. And, quite frankly, I still wear a mask even though I've got the vaccine. And I just think that's out of courtesy to try to protect not only, myself, but protect others as well. And I do think that there is going to be a fall sports season in light of the fact that we have taken some preventative measures to try to, offset the virus. Now, I'm scared is all get out with the new Delta variant, and I'm like, wait a minute, there's another version coming. It's like, how do we get rid of this thing, right? I don't know that we get rid of it, but at least we've got some protections in place, right? So I am hoping for a positive fall sports season, which, to your point, really would help the hotel industry quite a bit, as opposed to last year where there was nothing. And I think that's a very good point to make there. So you're thinking that there would be some group meetings, which I hope so as well. I had a chuckle a little bit when you talk about the parent at home with the three kids trying to do the Zoom meeting. I I could see the ball and the bat all going on in the background while the mom is trying to have a Zoom meeting, and she just all of a sudden just goes on no video, right? So that
It
she can
is.
go say, "Hey, get from behind me." But I'm sure we've had quite a few good examples of Zoom meetings gone bad because of the children being home and no daycare, right?
Yeah.
So as you look into 2022, Raul, tell me what do you think 2022 looks like for you guys, and how are you guys kind of strategizing there?
So, great question. And I would tell you that, early on, Remington, we were very aggressive about shutting down operations, particularly food and beverage and things like that. We went to skeleton crew where we needed to. It was all about asset preservation. We also were the first ones to actually come out. So early, believe it or not, in April, we visited all of our 80 hotels. The leadership team visited every single one of our hotels, including Anchorage, Alaska. And the reason for that is because we had what we call a bunker mentality, right? People were kind of shut down and they were depressed and sad in being in these sad environment. We needed to come out as a leadership and said, we are back to business and we're back to work. And we call that Spring Forward. And the team really, really appreciated it. And not just that, but we're actually redoing it again. We're starting actually at the end of August, and we're going to do regional meetings the same way. We're going to have 7 regional meetings across the United States where we'll bring the general managers and the directors of sales. And the reason for that is kind of to your point, where we feel that, yes, there's a strategic approach about growing our revenues, and we have to be able to grow in smarter. I wouldn't say that we're growing it to 2019 levels, but we are growing it in a different way. I think that there's a number of things that will change from 2019, and we want to grow these for the future. But we can't underestimate the power that we have in order to be able to reignite that passion, the hospitality passion in our hotel associates, from general managers to housekeepers, to anybody who's in the hotel. If they're not motivated, it does not matter what strategy we have. The teams, this is a high touch industry, and those individuals are going to have to execute what we put in place. So I do believe, and we do believe, that again, that leadership side needs to start with us. We need to be out in the open and say to people, we're ready to travel. We're willing to put our money where our mouth is. And we need to be able to ignite, as I said, reignite that passion in the team. The other thing I would tell you is that pre-pandemic, Remington was in the path of getting into third-party management. And that was something that Sloan actually, as part of a strategic initiative for the long term of the organization, has started to do. And that's something that we were not known for. We're seeing kind of the fruits of that labor now. We have significantly increased the amount of people in development team and underwriting. And we have set up a lot of steps to make sure that we can onboard and we can satisfy the needs of any owner that we have. In year to date, we've signed almost 12 deals. We've added, I think it is 5-6 hotels this year. There's a number of hotels that we would have added. So we're very excited about the future because, again, Remington historically has run great hotels. It's known as a great operator. But again, we have been doing that in a small group of owners. Now we have the ability to kind of expand that and continue to grow into new owners and be able to take our capabilities and our platform and improve, obviously, the hotels of other owners.
Wow, that's awesome. So you guys are expanding into the management role in addition to the 80 or 86 properties I think you guys have right now. And do you think you guys will see capital expenditures, the maintenance CapEx, the PIP renovation? Do you think you guys will see that work return in 2022? Obviously, that's the area that we play in as a third party project management group. So I'm always kind of interested in hearing because, from 2020 to now, the bulk of that capital expenditure and maintenance cap work has really dried up down to small numbers. There's only a few groups that really are spending funds, but do you think there'll be you'll see a lot of capital being put into properties and assets in 2022 again, or you think it's a little bit further out?
I do believe it will start, and this is what you want to think about. Some of the capital reserves may have been spent, obviously, in the survival mode of the hotels, right?
Mhm.
But again, some of that, as you know, it is required by loans and things like that, so it can be deferred, but it still needs to be spent, right? So there's a couple calculations. As we basically didn't do as much capital expenditure last year, you also have a lot of deferred maintenance. So what we're dealing with now is there's a lot of things that we probably shut down for a year that we now need to come back and say, you know what, that jacuzzi
Yep.
pump needs another pump.
Yep.
You know what,
Yep.
that fridge needs another one. So we're seeing a lot of capital being spent on the back of the house because some of the things, again, have been deferred, and now obviously we need to reignite that. The other calculation I want to think about is we had, I don't know, 5 or 6 hotels that we were supposed to renovate in 2020, and those got stalled. Some of which, all that part has been already purchased and sitting on a warehouse. So it makes more sense to renovate than to keep paying storage fees. Not that it's the same cost, but it does.
Yeah. Yeah.
The other thing you want to think about is it is far more advantageous for us to renovate in 21 and 22 that it will be in 23 and 24 when demand comes back.
Bingo.
So there is a calculation about I may have less displacement in a down year than there will be. I don't think we want to be in a situation where we're spending capital in a year where we're expecting to have, kind of resurgence 2024, 2025, assuming being the year where revenues will come back to 2019.
Right. Awesome. Yeah, you're kind of leaning in the same direction where we were, where we always said, hey, if you've got the capital to upgrade your property during this slow period, you can get it done faster. And trust me, you'll get some of the best pricing you're probably going to see. Because folks are looking for work, right? But yeah, no, I agree wholeheartedly there. So, Raul, I wanted to say thank you for giving us a few minutes of your time. I also wanted to say I understand that my good buddy Rob Carl is over at Remington now.
Yes.
So give Rob a shout out for me. Tell him hello. I knew Rob from the Philcore RLJ days, so haven't seen him in a while, but I hope he's doing well. And how do folks find you? You talked about your third-party management services. If folks want to talk to you guys about maybe, jumping on board or getting you guys to talk to them about it, how do they find you guys?
Absolutely. So remingtonhotels.com is obviously the best website. We have a section for development. Jared Evans is our chief investment officer. He is great. We talk 2-3 times a day, I guess. Follow us on LinkedIn. We obviously want to make sure that you're seeing kind of not just our investment or our management platform, but again, our culture is very important to us. Thrive is kind of our word. We say we're passionate people thrive. You can see kind of a lot of that branding again on our LinkedIn feed in there. But definitely Remington Hotels. Obviously I am available if you need. So Raul Moronta at Remington Hotels. Feel free to drop me a line and hopefully we can get on conversations.
And that's awesome. Thanks again so much for joining us. This has been another Ted's Hospitality Minute. Thanks, guys, and we'll see you next time.